I listen to those two back to back every single day. My famous What If book. Here's your What If for today. If this is your first time here, I tend to pick this book up and I open this thing and we'll see which one we're going to read. And today, this is actually great. So thank you, God, for this one. Again, this was written by a woman when she was 100 years old, and it comes from a life wisdom gained from living a long life. And it's kind of a treasure. A dear friend of mine gave this to me. It simply says, what if? Think of yourself when you think this. There is no such thing as a worthless person. Because I believed I was one of those worthless people. All right, yes, shame, everybody's favorite topic. I can't wait to talk about this one. Woohoo! So I'm a perfect example of shameful things to feel ashamed over, because I have lived a life that without my higher power, without my God, without my Jesus, would have me sitting in the corner in shame. But that is not the life that God has for us. We're going to be taking the message today from 1 Corinthians 1, 26 through 31. And again, I'm going to take it in pieces. And we're going to talk about shame. Because this one, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, affects so many of us. This is the number one reason why people come and ask just to sit and talk. This was the number one thing that derailed me and drove me further to my 40 years of drinking. Shame both from things I chose to do and also shame I carried because of things people chose to do to me. And we're going to cover all of it. And it is my hope today that when you leave, if you walked in here feeling any shame at all, that you will say, I don't have to carry this. I don't have to put this on. I don't have to feel this, and just leave it here today. Shame is not something that our Father wants for us. That is not something that He ever wanted for us to carry. Take a good look, friends, at who you were when you got called into this life. I don't see many of the brightest and the best among you. Not many influential and not many from high society families. I love this verse because it's a great description of the people that Jesus Himself chose to be His disciples. I think people probably would have assumed, and probably the people themselves, those highly educated people in Israel, you know, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the religious leaders, because, you know, they know it all. You know, just ask them, they'll let you know. They know all those laws and the nitty-gritty details, and they'll hold you to them. Trust me. They would do that. And Jesus sent shockwaves over so many things that He did, including choosing His followers, because He didn't choose the people you would expect. He would have walked right in here and says, I see a whole bunch of people here that I am ready to call to follow me. He's not going to the higher educated, not going to the ones that have it all right and are living that amazing life. He didn't go to them. He went to the most broken. He went to the rough and tumble people. He went to the ones that probably would have hung out at the bar and gotten all the brawling fights and probably dabbled in the drug thing and liars and cheaters and all the thing. Those are the ones that He called. He called people just like me. Just like every one of us in here. But if you only knew what I've done, I'm not worthy of love, not worthy of acceptance. I'm not worthy of, you can fill in the blank with a million things. I know I sat and felt utterly worthless and not worthy of blessings, not worthy of love, not worthy, period. Because if you only knew. So that shame had me living in silence, that fear, like, people can't know this though, but not this, because this is too much. People are great and they're forgiving, but this, they'd never look at me the same. They would judge me, and I deserve it. I deserve the judgment. I deserve this. I'm just going to be quiet, and I'm going to live a life terrified that somebody's going to find out, that somebody's going to say it, because I'm not worthy. If you only knew. Bible talks about some people that knew some things. You know, we can say, but I'm an addict. I'm a drunk. Me, drunk. That's what I am. I can't start drinking because then I never stop drinking. Immoral. Oh yeah, that label, that fit me too. All of those. All of those. I think some of us in here can probably identify with one or two or three of these things. It's things that we do in a life when we're not focused on God, when we're lost in our substance use, when we're lost in life, when we're lost. But so were they. But you're like, Noah? But he built an ark. Like he did what God said. Preached to people. It was amazing. He was saved with his family. So I sat with that and it was like, you want to talk about some PTSD? Imagine being Noah. You know, I think we forget that he knew those people. He lived with them. He talked with them. They interacted with them. He cared about them. What did he get to witness? I never sat and thought about that before. How do you live in the aftermath of utter destruction? And it wasn't just a town that a tornado took out. A global event. Nobody made it but him and his family. I'm sure he had friends, relatives, everything. You know, like I think, do we just picture Noah and his wife and his kids? There were no aunts, no uncles, no like, well, how did they get there? You know, obviously there were others. I would imagine that's traumatic. And Noah was a human just like us. Noah planted a vineyard. Nothing wrong with that. But guess what he did with what he grew? He made a product that I indulged in for a long time. Noah got drunk. I kind of get it. There's sometimes things in your head that are hard and heavy, and I can imagine Noah had some of those. I can't imagine what that experience would have been like. But he got very, very, very drunk. And he was very, like Gary Kay, naked and drunk and making a fool of himself. And it's the epitome of a shameful act and behavior. And he had one son that mocked and laughed and couldn't wait to tell the other brothers. The brother paid a price for that. And the other two sons came and covered their dad and tried to cover their shame. But Noah experienced shame. How about Lot? Again, but Lot, he took his wife and his family and they fled the city. They were righteous people. They were good. And they fled. Lot's good, right? Guess who else drank? Yeah, that's right, Lot. You want to talk about some immoral behaviors? Lot drank and willingly drank what his daughters gave him, because it was just Lot and his daughters at that point. Didn't want the family line to die out, so Lot had children with his two daughters. That wasn't an okay thing in those days. That's shameful. You think he didn't have that what if thought? He did. How about Rahab? Rahab wasn't even an Israelite, and she was a prostitute. But Rahab also saved men from Israel that came into the town. She helped them escape, knowing that it would cost her everything, her life. She knew that, and she willingly did it. You know what happened to her? She ended up marrying somebody from Israel, and she is listed in the family line of Jesus. She's a prostitute. She knows what it's like to feel shame. And then there's King David, man after God's own heart. Oh, that's right, we talked last week. He raped somebody and then murdered her husband. Little bit immoral, I would dare say. Shame. Can you imagine being the king and having a prophet come to your doorstep? We're going to have a talk. And then everything you did was openly stated to you. Like David's like, it's known face to face with my greatest shame. God gives us these things in the Bible because he knows we're going to deal with shame. And yet Noah, and Lot, and Rahab, and David are listed in the Bible as people that God loved, people that God redeemed in the family line of Jesus himself. They weren't the perfect ones. They weren't listed because they did everything right. At times, I think I thought perhaps, like Noah's the most perfect person that walked the planet at that time. But it was his faith. So God saw him through the lenses of his faith and could describe him as a man after my heart. It wasn't based on his actions. But I love that their actions and their behaviors are listed for us. I'm glad that we can read it so we can see that all these great saints that have gone before were just like us. Sometimes I want to say worse than, but then that's that whole thing. But I haven't murdered anybody. I haven't raped anybody. But I sure have done a lot of other things that put me on the same playing field. But I harmed people. Beat somebody up. That's an obvious, yeah, that harms people. Murder, yeah, that would be harming people. I lost a lot of time with my kids because I was drinking and drunk. I harmed my kids. That's harm. I harmed myself, family, people I cared about. There's so many different ways of harming people. Some that land you behind bars. Others that are the bars in your own head because you live with the idea and the memories and the thoughts. I hurt people, though. I'm not worthy. I'm so ashamed of how I treated people. I didn't help when I could have helped. Maybe I mocked or belittled. Maybe I left, didn't include somebody because you're not good enough to sit with me. There's a million ways that we can harm. Sometimes we may not know how deeply we do. Other times it's full on intent because we didn't care. I know in my substance use, I know for a fact I caused a lot of harm to myself primarily and then to my kids. Not physically, they were always provided for. We always figured out I managed to keep a roof over their head through a number of ways. But time away, not being present like I should have, those are things that sit on me. Those gut me. If I let those emotions go, I'm sitting sobbing because the last people on earth I'd want to hurt were the 6 kids who were everything to me, my most precious treasures here on earth. Doesn't change the fact that I hurt them. But so did they. Cain, first murder. He killed his brother because he got jealous. Because his brother chose to do the right thing, and Cain kind of like, oh yeah, I got to sacrifice. Oh yeah, those are good enough. We'll throw those up there. While his brother chose the best to offer. And Cain couldn't deal with it, so I'll take care of that, and killed his brother. David's back on the list again. He certainly hurt people. I would say raping somebody and then murdering a husband is causing some harm. But look at the harm he did to his faith, to his people, to his position. What about his men in battle that he should have been out there with leading while he's lollygagging and traipsing around the city there? He caused all kinds of harm. Peter and Judas, I'm going to take those two together. You're going to see Judas show up again because he's that little wild card on the list. Peter and Judas both betrayed Jesus. Peter through denying him 3 times during his trial. 3 times, over and over, louder each time, getting more and more angry that somebody would dare try to say, you know that man. And Peter, because he's so afraid, I don't want this to happen to me, Nope, don't know him. I don't know him at all. Once, twice, 3 times. And the 3rd time, we know that rooster crowed just like Jesus said it would. What do you think Peter thought? Because Jesus was walking up those stairs at the same time and caught his eye. During the 3rd time of denying him. Can you imagine looking God in the face as you're saying, I don't even know that man? And then he looks at you as he's on his way to die for you. Oh. And then there's Judas, a disciple loved by Jesus, with him everywhere. Just celebrated the Lord's Supper with him. Jesus served Judas too at that Lord's Supper. Judas got up and left. Why? Because he had to sell Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. He also betrayed Jesus. Both of them had the realization of what they did. The difference between these two, Peter ran closer to God. Judas went further because his mind never grasped the concept that he could continue to go closer. Paul. We read his words in the New Testament all the time. So many of them written from prison. We hold Paul up as just this amazing man of God. But before he was Paul, he was Saul. And Saul had a job because he was one of the educated religious leaders. He killed people that followed Jesus. He persecuted them. He rounded them up and threw them in jail. That's what he did, and he was good at it. Christians feared this man. They feared him. So what do you think he had to deal with after his conversion? So now he's being sent to minister to and live with the very people he used to kill. Do you think he didn't feel some guilt and shame over what he had done? He had blood on his hands. Paul. But these are, for the most part, saints. But I ran from God. What is running from God? I ran for a long time. I've always known God. I was brought up in a super conservative church. Bible, I know the Bible because drilled in every single day, 7 days a week, and catechism and church twice on Sunday and Bible studies and Sunday school. And I was at every single one because there wasn't another option. But I didn't know God. I didn't have a relationship with God. And when the hard stuff was in life, I didn't know that God was there to love me. I ran in fear because it's God. He's going to punish me. I'm going to go to hell. Well, I don't want to go to hell. And I love God, but I didn't know God. And I'm not good enough, and I can't get it right. And alcohol makes it feel a lot better, so I'm going to drink more alcohol and get further away. And then alcohol causes this, and causes this, and causes this. And I kept running. I kept running from the very thing that would have been my comfort, the one thing that would have helped make things better. And I went further and further and further and further from it because fear first, and right on its heels was shame. And they kept pushing me away, pushing me further away because I'm so not deserving. I'm not deserving. I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. I'm not. There's a million things that push us further and further and further from the one that we should be coming closer and closer to. But so did these people in the Bible. Adam and Eve, they hid. That's running. That recognition hits. They knew what they'd just done. They knew the decision they had. And I don't think there was this gradual change in their life and in their mindset. Like they went from living in this perfect place and everything is amazing. All their needs are met in the most beautiful place we could possibly imagine. But that wasn't good enough because, we got to have more. That's how humans are. So they got more. They got all the emotions. Except it wasn't all happy and joyful anymore. I wonder what it was like to feel shame for the first time. Something you've never felt before, and then to be overwhelmed with it to the point where you're in this garden in desperation trying to hide from God, who you used to walk with daily. No shame. They were like trying to cover themselves up because God can't see us naked. Well, he made you. He kind of knows what you look like. You weren't ashamed about it before. You are now. Because the knowledge of who you really are in your core hit home for them. And reality, I'm sure, was a horrible thing that they had to get through. Moses. Again, great Moses leading the people. The 40-year journey that shouldn't have taken 40 years, but it needed to. That Moses. He was called by God, and Moses knew it, but he always had a reason why he couldn't. I have a stammer. I don't speak well. La, 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 la. Well, then Moses saw one of his fellow countrymen. Moses, of course, was raised by the king's daughter, so he kind of had this special position, but all his countrymen were still there. They were slaves, though. Saw some being mistreated, so he murdered the man who was mistreating him. He hightailed it out of there. His faith, his confidence in God, didn't trust that God could handle it, so he's like, I'm going to handle it, I'm going to murder him, and oh shoot, bad choice, not good. So he ran. Can't outrun God, though. Jonah. We know the story of Jonah and the cute thing, and in Sunday school, you got the fish, and the little Jonah sitting inside the stomach, the smile on there, just waiting to get spit up on the shore. That all happened because he was running, because he didn't want to go where God said he needed to go. He didn't want to go to Nineveh. I'm not going. So he went everywhere but. Ends up on a ship. Remember that. He's on a ship. Horrible storm. Jonah understands. It's because of me. It's me. It's because you have me on this boat. I'm the reason for all of this. You need to throw me overboard. So they did. And things calmed. But do we forget where they were at that time? Do we really think Noah could have swam to shore? Was that possible? Again, another thing that I sat with, I'm like, something had to save them. I don't think they had life jackets. I don't think there was a lifeguard on duty at that point. There's nobody on a jet ski waiting to go pick them up. There wasn't another boat right there that was going to scoop them up. No, this is Jonah bobbing around on the water out there. Suddenly, this horrible thing of getting swallowed by a fish, because I'm telling you, I think I would just choose to die right then and there at the whole thought of that thing. I mean, ugh. Ooh. And then to be in there for 3 days, ugh. But he would have died. He wasn't going to swim back to shore. That horrible place was what saved him. Just like the trials in life are often what save us. So Jonah found himself, got a ride right up to shore. I'm sure he smelled great. His skin was all weirdly colored, but it's what happens when you're sloshing around in some fish's dinner, I'm just like, I'm like everything in me. I'm like, talk about PTSD. I'd never be okay, but it's what God used to save him. But it was because he was running. Judas, he also ran, but he didn't run back towards God ever. He continued in the knowledge of what he had done, and he never did understand that he was worthy because of Jesus. Isn't it obvious that God deliberately chose men and women that the culture overlooks and exploits and abuses? Chose those nobodies to expose the hollow pretensions of the somebodies? The shame that we've talked about, for the most part, has been shame over actions that people chose. And then we get to, but if you knew what happened to me, if you knew what happened when I was a child. We live in a culture that often makes victims of something done to them bear the shame of it. That's another kind of shame, and one of the cruelest kind, where the victim is made to carry the shame. That happens all the time. Ask a woman who's been raped. Shame is one of the primary things that she feels. Why? Why does she feel the shame? Ask a child that was molested how they feel as an adult over actions somebody took against them and violated every line and boundary there is and harmed a child. How do they usually feel as an adult? And I can tell you from experience, it's shame. I bore the shame of it. Something really wrong with me. I was naughty, I was bad, I was worthless, I was this, I was that. Because those things, those don't happen to good people. I must have been a really bad kid. That's why it happened to me, because I was bad. And then it got backed up with, God knew that you needed refining, so that's what he had happen to you. Because that's what was told to me, which was the cruelest thing you could say to somebody, because that is not the case. But it doesn't change the fact that many, many, many people carry shame that is not their shame to carry. The shame is on the one who caused the action against them. So I'm pleading with church, if you know people in that situation, love them harder. Tell them they don't have to carry that shame, that it's not shameful to say what happened to you. I didn't talk about it until a couple years ago. That was the one thing I never shared. I was never going to talk about that one, ever. It's the most shameful thing. That's what my head said. The most shameful thing. I was a kid. And here I am, in my 50s, feeling shame over actions that were done to me when I was a child. That's awful shame to carry. I speak with women who've experienced sexual assault, and the shame breaks my heart into a million pieces because it's not their shame to carry, but they do. They understood. Tamar, Old Testament. Tamar's half-brother called her over, wanted some food. Okay. She brought it to him and he raped her. And in that culture, that made her worthless. She would never be married. Could likely be the one dying because of what happened to her. That's just the way they did things then. She lived in shame for the rest of her life. In torn clothing and dust on her head. It's what she did every day. Wearing the shame of an action done to her. Noah, I'm sure he woke up with a hangover and then had to sit in the shame of what had happened. Because people told him what happened. Lot. I can imagine there's shame as he looks at this newborn tiny baby that his daughter just had, and it's his child. You think there's no shame there? Every day? I'd imagine there was a lot. How about this woman? She was outright caught in the middle of the act. I don't think when they dragged her out to make a spectacle of her, they allowed her to dress or have any sort of modesty whatsoever as they hauled her out in public and threw her at the feet of Jesus in the middle of a crowd of people to make an example of her. I'm sure they already had the rocks in hand to throw at her. Do you think she didn't feel shame? I don't know what caused her to be in that position. In those days and times, there's a number of things. A choice, possibly. Desperation, that was usually the choice. It wasn't super easy to be a woman in certain cultures. But hers, she didn't have the luxury of a private shame. She was dragged out on full display in the middle of everybody, adulterer. I'm sure she saw rocks in people's hands. She knew the penalties. I'm sure there's fear, but when I put myself in her place, it's shame that I think would override everything. The utter shame of what I'm experiencing. They understood. But all of them are loved by God. All of them. Jesus loved this woman that was caught in adultery. He loved her. He didn't shame her. He didn't accuse her. He didn't further traumatize her. Humans do that. That makes it quite clear that none of you can get by with blowing your own horn before God. Everything that we have, right thinking and right living, a clean slate and a fresh start, comes from God by way of Jesus Christ. And that's why we have the saying, if you're going to blow a horn, blow a trumpet for God. My favorite picture. You'll probably see this for a while. Sorry. Not sorry. There's something powerful in this photo for me, so I use it. But those words, I paid the cost of your shame. He paid the cost of mine. Because I love you. There is nothing else that would make somebody pay that price. Nothing. You don't do this for somebody you're angry with. You don't do it for somebody you're frustrated with. You don't do it for people that you see as worthless and unworthy. You don't do what he did because you weren't worth it. He didn't do what he did because there were things you've done that he doesn't know about. So you made the list. Doesn't work that way. Fully aware because he was there. In every single thing, he was there. It's all known. Nothing was a surprise. And he knows all the stupid things I'm going to do before my time here comes to an end. And he still says, man, I love you, Heidi. I'm doing this for you. And the shame, do we think Jesus didn't experience shameful things? He didn't do things worthy of shame, but he suffered things that were meant to be shameful. His death, being on the cross, it was considered one of the most shameful ways to be put to death because it represented rejection. Rejection both from earth and rejection from heaven. You're like hanging in between. You're not on earth, but you're not in heaven. You're dying, hanging in the air, publicly, gruesomely, horribly, over a prolonged period of time, mocked, ridiculed, your crimes posted for all the world to see above your head. And you think that's not a shameful way to die? I don't know what makes somebody love me that much. I don't. But to say you're worth it, he says it every day to every one of you. It's like, I did that for you so you don't have to live with the shame. He knows what you've done. And if you chose it willingly, he knew that. And still said yes to this. Things that were done to you, he was there too. I struggled with that one for a very, very long time because I'm like, God, you could have stopped it. It didn't have to happen because you could have stopped it. It's like, yeah, he goes, this is sin. This is this fallen world we live in, and things are allowed. You do not understand it now, but you will. And now I do. Now I do. Well, I can pray, please, God, don't ever let that happen again. That experience as a child, but please don't ever, ever, ever let me fall back into my drinking. Don't let me ever fall back into my addiction. Don't let me fall back into running. Just please don't ask me to do that again, because the lessons learned in those times are precious. And I'm grateful for them. But wow, they're hard. And they're heavy, and he knows that. He didn't ask you to get through it on your own. He says, I'm right here. You just keep looking at me and watch what I'm going to make this become. I'm going to take something that was meant for evil for you, and I'm going to make something beautiful from it. My Father, God, grieved in my greatest pain and hurt. Grief. He didn't celebrate it. He wasn't saying, oh yeah, good, worthless, naughty kid. Maybe this will straighten her out. That was an agony to God, because God is love, and love is not something that would choose deliberate harm, especially to a child. We know what God thinks of children and how he feels about them. For anyone here who struggles with shame, we can sit in recovery, if you're like me at all, and I can bring to mind so often, and I don't have my alcohol anymore to numb this, but I think over my life so often. I can think of times, events, people, places, things, all the things I did that it's like, oh, if I could go back and that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen. I can do that endlessly, and I can sit and think about the ramifications of what it caused, of how things would be different if I wouldn't have done that. I feel such shame sometimes. But I feel that because I look back at it from where I am now with an understanding and a knowledge that I have now. I understand why I carried such shame. It's because I didn't lean into God yet. I didn't truly understand love like that. I'd never had a healthy relationship. You think I had one with God? I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. I'm like, well, it's good enough. I guess this is what I'm getting. I didn't know I was worthy of more than that. And it's not a selfish thing to feel that way. It's not a bad thing to know your worth, to know your value, even with every choice you've ever made in life. That's where we get hung up, I think. It's pretty easy. It's like, well, I serve people and I like to feed people and I try to be nice to people and smile at people and give compliments. So, I'm not so bad. It gets sticky though, when you remember. When you remember. It's one of the worst things I think about people with addiction. Because as we're trying to fight that addiction, to remain in our sobriety and our recovery, we get to deal with all those thoughts and emotions without the tool that we used before to take us away from that. It's not fun to sit with those things. If you feel shame over things that you chose to do, just tell God. Say, God, you were there, so you already know what I'm going to tell you, but I did this. Thank you for covering that. Thank you for loving me so much that you took care of that. Thank you. And for those of you that feel that other shame over things done to you, I am pleading with you to lean into God who never judged you, who only sat there holding you and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Let it go. It's not yours. It was never your shame. The one I hate, Satan, that's him talking. I hate him for that because of the destruction of it. I am coming to believe that shame is more likely to take you off your recovery game than any other emotion. The shame of being known, the shame of people knowing your real thoughts, your real actions, blah, 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 all this stuff. The literal just being fully known. And that can make it really hard to come closer to God too, because who knows you more than that? And when those human emotions are covering everything, it's hard to understand that God doesn't see you the same way you're seeing yourself. Because I think sometimes we mistakenly think that, well, if we can see it, imagine what he sees. And you're right, he sees it all, but he sees it through the lens of this one. Those words again, it is finished. Why do we not let it be finished? Why? We said it last time. And what does it is finished mean? Was it's finished for some of it? I covered 75% of the sin. You guys are responsible for the remaining 25%. That wouldn't work. It's impossible. Well, I'll die for you now, but if you screw up again, you're off the boat. Done. I didn't die for you then. That doesn't work that way either. He doesn't do things part way. He's kind of a go big or go home kind of God. It's the way he is. It's all or nothing, but in the best way. It's not difficult to receive what he's giving. We just have to take it. But the hardest part about that for some of us, and I'm assuming I'm not the only one, was because I felt so utterly unworthy. Because I knew myself. That's the fall at work in me. I suddenly knew myself. And it wasn't in a good way. It's understanding just how horrible I've been, just how awful my thoughts can be, of how selfish I can be and wanting. Depends on the day. It can be different things. But please, leave the shame. Those stories in the Bible that I said before, I love that when I read it, I don't try to pretty up. I don't call David an adulterer. I won't. It angers me to see that word because he was a murderer and a rapist. Say what it really is because it makes his story better. It makes it more beautiful. Tell it in its rawness and in its full nature. Tell it that way. Because I'm telling you, when you hear that from somebody, you're like, I can't even believe it because look at you. That's the beautiful thing. That's what makes people want Jesus. Why are we watering it down? I've had watered down Jesus my entire life, and I recognize that now. We prettied up the words because we're in church and we don't want to say dirty words like sex, assault, sexual abuse, pedophilia, rape, molestation. Why don't we call things what they really are? They are ugly words. Lying, cheating, stealing, lusting, all of it. Ugly words, but say it what it is. Don't make some pretty little polished up thing. Because the beauty is in the ugliness being made beautiful. What God can do with that is marvelous and freeing. That was a hard thing to grasp. It's not fun to tell your story in rawness. The first time I did it, I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I expected people to start walking out. I expect people, they were going to come up to me and give me an earful. I expected awful things to happen because, boy, I said some things that were really ugly, things that I'd never heard openly talked about in church. Do you know what that caused? I thought I was the only one that had that happen to me because nobody ever talked about it. That's why we walk around in shame. We are the church, and it's the place where shame shouldn't be. And we should never allow people to feel it. And we should never be the cause of it. Without intending sometimes, I think we can just heap more shame on people. And we need to be so careful of that. He took care of all of it. Don't be ashamed of your story because it's the journey that God used. There's a lot of not pretty stories in the Bible. Why do you think yours has to be pretty to share? My favorite are the real ones. You can tell me anything at all, and I will not change my mind about how I feel about you. And you can test me on that one. I will not be shocked, and I will not be disgusted. I will not be appalled. I will be none of those things. I will feel honored that you allowed me into that space. To trust somebody that much with the junk. But remember, they're only people, because the only one that matters already knows and already took care of it. So we're worried about people and their little thoughts? I worry about that too much. If people knew. I'm going to challenge you, let them. Let them know. Share your story fully. All of it. especially with the ones that may want to be coming at you. I had no idea that's kind of your best weapon. People using my past against me, and I've had people do it, eager to point out things that they knew or found out or heard. And I'm like, that's great, but I didn't think you got the whole story. Let me tell you the whole story, at which point they're feeling like a fool. Because now I am openly talking about topics they don't want to talk about. I don't want to hear it, la, 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 la. And I'm like, no, let me tell you. Because, wow, look at where I am. Look where he brought me. And if you can't see the miracle of my life, I'm sorry for you. Because in my sharing, all I want to do is let people know our God is that big. He's that big for every single one of you in here, no matter what you've done, no matter how long you've been away. You don't have to be a devout Christian follower and do all the things right for X amount of time to be admitted into heaven. The thief on the cross is proof of that. Didn't do a good thing a day in his life. Didn't know God a day in his life until he's about to take his last breath. And that day, he met Jesus and went to heaven. That's my God. That's my God. So don't let anybody tell you you're too far, you're too this, you're not doing this right. I'm going to call it what it is. It's crap. Yeah, I said it in church. It's crap. I don't want to sell you a watered down God. I want to sell you a God, not sell you. I want to show you. The non-watered down realness of God. I know. The more I do this, the more I'm realizing how watered down he's become. And it's done nothing but cause people more harm and hurt. Christians sitting here going to church every day because to them church has become a building or a denomination or the name above the door. And that becomes more important than anything else, a label or a title. You wear Christian like a noun, but it's not a verb. So Christians are silent and they're quiet, but they're very nice. How was your day? Oh, good. Did your kids have a good time in school? And oh, did you go to the thing? And oh, Bible study was wonderful. And oh, did you sign up for adult group yet? Oh, it's so good. I'm so blessed. That's about as deep as it gets in most churches. Surface. We don't live a surface life. We don't. Why doesn't gathering to do church, which isn't a building, it is not a building, it is not a denomination, it's not a place, it's us. Why did church become that way? I start to realize how deep Satan's gotten into church. Does his best work there. The church is where you go with everything. And we should be the most understanding, compassionate, loving humans on the planet because we know what was done for us. But we don't do that for other people. We live them feeling too ashamed to talk about it. Oh, yeah, we don't do recovery services in the church because, they do that over there. We keep it cleaner over here. I had one church say it costs us too much money to have a ministry in that. And I'm like, what? It costs you too much money? Really? What is your church then? It's just a building. And that's empty. And that's meaningless. Should never be about a cost. There's more than enough for everybody. It should never be a place where you feel you're not good enough, or you have to clean up a certain way, or look a certain way, or know it all, or even know the Bible at all. You don't to go to church, because church is simply a gathering of people who are the church, who are coming together to talk about the one who changed everything. It's community. It's support. It's what keeps us going. It's what keeps the love going. It's together we can make amazing things happen. I see that here all the time. The people that come here make amazing things happen. That's church. What happens here on 6 days outside of Sunday, that's church. That's more church than anything I've ever seen in my life. Church isn't Sunday, listening to one person standing up here telling you how to live your life. It's not church. My whole drive for even being up here is to see people free from the crap that keeps you stuck in fear and shame and worthlessness, because that's not what you are. You're a treasure. You are capable, you are loved, and you have a calling on your life. Every single one of you. And if you don't believe me, just come talk to you, because I promise you, if you are here, you're alive and you're breathing, you have a calling on your life by God Himself. Say yes to that when you understand what it is. But buckle up. It gets a little crazy, but in all the fun kind of ways. I pray that shame doesn't take you out of the game. That shame doesn't keep you separated. And I'm talking about the kind of separated that happens even when you're surrounded by people. The kind of shame that makes you feel like you can't be known fully. I'll share fully everything about my life. All the ugly, icky, dirty parts of my life. And I will talk about it openly, because holy cow. Every day is more awareness of what redemption and mercy and grace and above all love is. I haven't lived a life this free of shame in 55 years. I think even as a child, shame was just a normal part of my life, and it was awful. And it keeps you from that amazing relationship with God. It's how I can hold my head up in spite of. Because I have nothing to be ashamed of, because He took care of it, and I'm not going to look at Him and say it wasn't enough. I have to carry this part. You don't have to carry any of it. None of it, because He was capable to do it all. Every bit of it. So please just let Him have it. He's been trying to take it like, okay, not ready yet. You want to give it to me? Give it to me. Just please give it to me. He's got a calling on your life. Shame isn't part of your calling. Fear's not a part of your calling. None of it. You just say yes. And just say thank you. And then the hard part. And then receive it. I can say all the words too. But to really do it, to really receive it, that's a huge step of faith. If you want to find out what faith is, receive it fully, and don't go back and pick up what you left with them. That can be hard to do. I often have to return some shame. It's like, oh, sorry, put that right there. Brought that one home with me. He'll take it back as many times, and He's going to keep saying, it's like, you don't have to bring that home. Don't have to bring it home. really not even sure what you're picking up there because I don't see that anymore. So if God doesn't see it, stop looking for it because it isn't there. I thank all of you for coming today. I hope that something that was shared spoke to you. It is always my prayer that God will know the needs in here. But I am pleading with you, just take the time before you leave today or at any point when you're ready and hand the shame to Him. It takes many different forms, but you don't have to leave here with it. You don't. It can be truly that easy just to say, I'm not living that way anymore. I'm not claiming it. I'm not living in shame anymore. I'm not going to feel this way anymore because I'm not going to take away from what He's done. I'm not going to show the world by wearing my shame that Jesus didn't quite cover it all because I still have to have this part of it. We're humans and we all do it, but we don't have to. So please, please just leave it here. So, thank you. Thank you. We'll be singing now. So I know, eventually, I know, I got words for days, but I appreciate you all being here. Shame has been a big one to sit in this week. It's been good for me. I realized I had a lot that I still had to hand over because, boy, it digs in deep. I know how deep the shame does. But leave it here. I'm going to set mine, empty my pockets, and I'm going to put it right there. Leave it there.